Is that what I think it is? It sure sounds good.
Lions roaring in the morning sun, searching for a longer day. People feel.
See, internal combustion engines are great, and we car enthusiasts love them. But there's a little problem. They pollute the environment. In which regard, electric vehicles with the electric motors are better for the environment as they have no even though they have electric tailpipes operating their batteries. But due to this reason, we have to say a sad goodbye to our beloved ICE engines. So I decided, why not pay homage to him? And I will start the homage by explaining you how an engine works. Learning how an internal combustion engine, or ICE engine for short, is a great starting point to learn how cars work, and it's a must for being a car enthusiast. So, without any further ado, let's get started. To make things simple, we are at first gonna look at a single cylinder four stroke engine. A four stroke engine is given its name because it follows four cycles: intake, compression, combustion, and exhaust. To start the engine, all the electrical spark plugs fire together at once such that at least one of the pistons move downwards. Then the first process occurs, that is intake. In this process, the piston moves downwards due to the spark created by the spark plug and creates a suction pull in the combustion chamber such that the air fuel mixture coming from here moves down to here in the combustion chamber. Next up is compression. Once the piston moves downwards, it automatically moves upwards due to its inertia as the crankshaft that is connected to the piston is circular in shape, which means that the piston can maintain its cycle of up and down movements without an external force acting upon the crankshaft to move the piston. Anyways, when the piston moves upwards, it compresses the air fuel mixture. The point to be noted here is the air fuel mixture is a fluid and has a lot of intermolecular space, which means it can be compressed very easily. Compression makes the air fuel mixture easier to burn and creates a good amount of explosion. Next up is combustion. When the mixture is compressed, which means that this head part of the piston is at about this distance. Then the air fuel mixture is compressed in here. Then the spark plug fires once more, and it creates a small explosion which pushes the piston downwards. Of course, the piston moves up again. And last up is exhaust, where the exhaust gases created during the combustion process escapes from this outlet through the exhaust pipe and out in the open air. An effective way to remember these four steps, which is also used by many other car enthusiasts, is SSBB, which means suck, squeeze, bang, blow, in which suck means intake, squeeze means compression, bang is combustion, and blow is exhaust. This is a very important acronym that everyone should remember. So I know what you might be wondering. What do these cams and valves do? Well, when the valves move downwards, then they open up these pathways, and when they move upwards, that is their default position, then they close these pathways. Now, why a closed pathway is required? That creates a sealed box, and while combustion is sealed, its environment around it should be closed, fully closed. That's why these valves are made. These can move down, up, or down. These cams move the valves downward, and when this part of the cam that looks like a lobe moves upwards, like in this position, then the spring do their work. They have a lot of potential energy stored into them, and then they expand so that the valve moves upwards to close the pathway. Now, these cams that you see in here are connected to a camshaft in here. It's basically a metal rod which goes through all the cams. Now, for example, if this camshaft moves 360 degrees, a full 360 degrees in 1 second, then each of these camshafts will move 360 degree along with the camshaft. Now, these camshafts are actually connected and powered by the crankshaft itself from a timing belt system. So, how is the rectilinear motion of the pistons changed to the rotational motion of the wheels that you end up seeing on the road? Well, as I mentioned before, the crankshaft is circular in overall shape, which therefore it changes the rectilinear motion of the pistons to the rotational motion that you see on the road. Speaking of which, let's look at the overall drivetrain layout in a conventional automobile. So the power makes its way from the engine to the flywheel and then to the clutch if it's a manual transmission, or a torque converter if it's an automatic transmission. Then it travels through the transmission itself, which has a lot of gears for different speeds. Then it travels to the drive shaft, and then to the differential, which splits the power between the two wheels, and then it finally makes its way to the wheels. Now the vehicle may have a differential on the rear wheels, the rear axles, if it's a rear wheel drive vehicle, if at the front axles, if it's a front wheel drive vehicle, or as you can see in here, three different differentials if it's an all wheel drive vehicle, one on the front axle, one on the rear axle, and one on the middle at the drive shaft. Most of the cars that we see on the road nowadays have a four stroke, four cylinder engine. The firing order, which is basically the sequence of ignition for the cylinders of a conventional inline 4, is 1, 3, 4, 2. Now, I know what you might be wondering. Why is it not 1, 2, 3, 4 like it should be? Well, let's imagine this inline 4 engine as two halves, where in the first half there are the first and second cylinders, and in the second half we have the third and fourth cylinders. So now imagine the first cylinder firing, and then immediately the second cylinder would fire again. What would happen is that the engine would lean towards the first half, so like in the left side, and then when the third cylinder fires, and then immediately the fourth cylinder fires, the engine will lean on the right side. This is not really good for the whole structure of the car and can destroy it in a very short amount of time. That is why we have the first cylinder fire, then the third cylinder fire, which is on the second half. So the first cylinder fires, which is on the first half, and the third cylinder fires, which is on the second half, which balances out the forces. Then the second cylinder fires, which is at the first half, and then the fourth cylinder fires on the second half, again to balance out the forces. In conclusion, the 1, 3, 4, 2 firing order is used to balance out the forces and to make the inline 4 a more balanced type of engine. Speaking of inline 4s, now we are going to see the different engine shapes. So, as I mentioned, the inline four is the one that is mostly used in cars and the conventional car nowadays. So, among all the engine shapes, the inline type of engine is the most commonly used type of engine shape now in the industry now. Now, the most common type of inline engines are inline threes, which are now being more and more popular with the new hatchbacks as they are being turbocharged too. Inline fours, as I mentioned before, inline 5s, inline 6, and inline 6s. But what happens if you want to arrange 8, 12, or 16 cylinders? Well, then the inline engine is not very practical, as then the engine becomes too long. For that, the V-shaped engine was introduced, in which the pistons of an engine are arranged in such a way that it resembles a V shape. Now, for example, I'm going to use for example, if we use the V8 analogy, then four of the cylinders would be arranged in here in this half, and the other four cylinders, so the first four cylinders in this half, and the second four cylinders in this half. This makes the V8 engine as long as an inline 4. Therefore, if we're talking about V12s, then it would be as long as an inline 6, But the V16 is still too long, as it is long as an inline 8. As I mentioned before, it is also very long. So what do we do in case of 16 cylinders? Well, we use the W-shaped engine. Now I know what you might be saying. This doesn't look like a W at all. It looks like two different V's joined together. It is, and therefore it should be called a double V, VV. Well, I'm going to use an analogy then. Let's say I said VV16, so it has 16 cylinders, but so VV16. Now that is not a very easy word to say, and so is VV8 and VV12. That is why it is called a W-shaped engine. So, for example, W16, W8, or W12. Since at the end of the day, a W is basically two V's joined together. These types of engines are usually found in cars that belong to the VW or Volkswagen group. The last engine type that we are going to discuss is the flat or boxer engine. Now, in these engines, the pistons are arranged in a 100-degree formation, which makes them appear as flat. This is mainly done to keep the center of gravity low of the engine, and therefore the overall car low. Therefore, makes the handling of the car much better. Now, do note that the flat engine and boxer engine names are not interchangeable, as both of them have different connecting rod placements. So these connecting rod placements to the crankshafts than each other. Therefore, they have a different firing order than each other. Thank you so very much to stay till the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please hit the like button. And if you have a somewhat interest in my channel, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to receive all the notifications as fast as possible. And I will see you the next time.